The New York Giants ship continues to sink at an alarming rate. Buckle up, folks. We're going to break this one down as best as we can and look for any sliver of hope for the rest of the season. That's coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traina, coming to you with part of a voice after spending the last few days with a bad head cold, but I'm here for you, and I'm joined by former NFL scout David Turner. And yeah, folks, if you're wondering, I'm a little sicker than I was at the start of the day after witnessing the Giants getting absolutely destroyed by the Miami Dolphins, 31-16. Really, no facet of the Giants played well. Maybe we could make an argument for special teams, but offense was just trash. Defense was trash. Coaching was garbage. I mean, David, what is going on here?
Well, I want to thank the Giants for remembering that they had invested in a tight end this year, because Waller actually showed up and they targeted him and they got him the ball quite often, 11 targets, 8 receptions for today. So that was a nice reminder that we invested in a tight end this year. But yeah, it's, I don't think any of us held a very bright candle that we were going to go down to Miami and just run with that track meet and be able to compete. We haven't shown that we can. We had offensive linemen out, and then even during the game, we were shuffling the offensive line. So, it's a situation where I think we're struggling. We did not take not the bye week, but that long layoff that we had between a Thursday night game against the Niners and that Monday night game against Seattle, and really regroup and learn how to get better. So for me, the coaches are not in sync with what they want to do offensively or defensively or special teams. So for me, it's just it's a trifecta of people trying to find their identities. We can't stop the run. Our passing game, again, we got Daniel Jones dropping back. What he attempted between him and Tyrod, 32 passes today. We completed 23 of them. Daniel was 14 of 20, which is a good percentage, but most of them were under 10 yards. So, again, we're not looking very threatening downfield, and we made investments in draft picks to do that. We made investments with like Paris Campbell and stuff to do that, and we're just not stretching the field very well early in the game to put any kind of stress on the defense, and we're not running the ball well at all. I saw a little life out of Gray today, but again, he only averaged 2.1 yards a carry. It's a mess everywhere you look.
David, obviously the place to look is at the offensive line. They've had 5 different starting combinations now. They went through at least another couple in this game. It got so bad at left tackle that they pulled Joshua Zudu out for your favorite player. He who shall not be named. I mean, at this point, David, is it coaching? Is it the talent? What is wrong with this unit that they cannot seem to get them to play like a functioning unit?
Well, again, offensive line. Look at when the Giants were very, very good at offensive line. They didn't have a lot of offensive line being hurt, right? They were guys that like Sean O'Hare and that group. We had pretty solid group for many years. We didn't have to worry about them. David Deal and those guys. So it's just a situation where that when you have a strong offensive line, as far as healthy, when I mean strength, and one that's played together for a while, they really trust each other, and it's a unique ballet inside there So, I mean, if you don't know who's looping, who's catching, where's your help coming from? In today, Neil, again, Neil thought the back was going to take the defensive end on one of the plays, but you could automatically see the back looked inside and to his left. Neil was to peek inside, see if he needed to help the guard. Guard was covered up. He's fine. Now kick back out and take the end. And Neil just let the end go right through and make the play. And it's, I had high hopes for Neil when we drafted him. I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to have our bookend guys. We're ready to get this on. And then we figure out the middle. But it's just absolute chaos out there for Daniel. And I can understand why he pulls the ball and he runs, because, he's dropping back and with under 3 seconds to throw the ball, he can't, we can't take deep steps. We can't do drops. And now we had injuries. So again, you can't put the 6 offensive linemen in there. I still don't understand why we're not running 12 personnel as a base personnel right now. That's 2 tight ends with 1 running back and 2 receivers. For me, that would be our base personnel, because we have good tight ends. Bellinger and Waller can be out there, and Waller's like a big receiver, so you can split them out. Bellinger's great on the move to block, do some stuff in the run game, almost like a fullback at this point. So, I mean, there are options there, and I just don't see enough of it being used. And that might also tie into the offensive line. They're trying to keep it basic and simple because we don't have everybody out there to throw wrinkles at everybody. So, again, there's a lot of things happening on the offensive side of the ball. No Saquon, no consistency on O-line. Play calling to me is kind of suspect, and we can't push the ball downfield because we can't block it up, and our quarterback is just under fire. I want to say that he got six sacks today. We gave up 6 sacks, and then we gave up 10 on Monday night, or the other night. So, yeah, so it's just like when you're taking that kind of beating week in and week out, and I'm not even counting the quarterback hits that get hit after the play or when he's running. I mean, it's a lot. And this young man's been under fire for almost his entire time at the Giants. I mean, it's not like this is the first year where he's under fire. It's pretty much a yearly thing with him. We didn't do enough in the offseason to correct the problem for the offensive line. We decided to spend money on Waller and Campbell and other places, and put a big chunk of it into the D-line, which, again, when we get to defense, they're just a sieve. It's a slice of Swiss cheese. So, for me, you got to look at the whole organization at this point, where we're putting money, who's not performing, who's getting the paychecks that aren't coming in every week, who's not doing extra, who's not showing up. All that's got to be evaluated by the Maras and everybody over there.
David, I don't want to put the blame solely on Daniel Jones, but I'm not going to lie here. I'm starting to lose a little confidence in him. One read, skittish. I've seen him bail out of the pocket, even when he's had a clean pocket. I don't see him looking past the sticks. Is he just, at the point now where maybe he's beyond fixing, if you will? Or what do you see when you look at his game?
No, I don't think he's beyond repair. Call it that if you like. But I do believe that he's gun shy. He's dropping back, and he's got a clock in his head where I got to get rid of the ball within 3 seconds or I'm going to get hit somewhere. I got it, because that's what's happening each week. He's getting hit somewhere. I remember an old school story about Joe Namath. Joe Namath used to love to hold on to the ball, and then throw it when it was perfect, right? So in practice, the Jets used to have a horn at 4, and a guy with a stopwatch. At 4 seconds, they blow the horn, right? So he knew he would be sacked at 4 seconds. Imagine being an NFL quarterback now when it's 3 seconds and then under 3 seconds. And the way you're getting trained is that you're getting hit in games under 3 seconds. So therefore, again, he's got this clock sped up in his head. He doesn't trust the offensive line and his coverage, his offensive line and his blocking to be able to, hold 3 seconds. So yeah, as soon as he's dropping back, hitting that back foot, if that person's not open, he's bailing, he's running, his eyes come down to the rush to protect himself. Kerry Collins, when we had him at Oakland, he was kind of that way as well. And we had a North Turner, who was our coach at the time, used to have a camera in practice at his eyes. So then we would superimpose picture in picture, I guess is what you would call it, picture in picture. So we show the angle from the back of the quarterback, and then we would show angle at his eyes, so Kerry Collins could see his eyes literally dropping to the rush within 2 seconds, because he was so used to getting hit and not seeing what's becoming open, not understanding the concepts. So quarterbacks, when they're continually and constantly getting hit and harassed, their self-protection mechanism is to bail and run and drop their eyes and find who's going to hit them so they can protect themselves. And that's what we're seeing from Daniel Jones. I don't like what I saw early on in the play calling, as far as I'm talking about games 1 through 3 this year. That I didn't like. He didn't understand some of the concepts. You could see him not understanding what was going on, and he didn't pull the trigger, and people were wide open. Okay, I didn't like that. I thought that was because they didn't play enough in preseason to understand all the new pieces to the puzzle and what they have here, what they got going on this offense. Okay, now I also think they're not working Hodgins into the reps early enough for him. Hodgins, when we got him last year, again, when we pulled him in, that became his guy. That was his guy that he absolutely wanted to go to all the time. That was his third down guy. That was everything. So today, to only have 2 targets for Hodgins, 11 for Waller. Waller was 8 of 11 for 86 yards. I applaud that. But I think Hodgins needs to be a focal point. And we have 2. We're used to having injury at receiver, so we overstocked there, right? We got all these stocks. Now we have all these fun toys to play with, and we're trying to spread the ball around, and it's not working. Like, one of my major theories is, right, if you've listened to the show before, you've heard me say it, find your 3 and play with those 3 and make them work. The other ones can get a target here, target there, that's fine, but your 3 really need to be defined. And to me, Hodgins has to be one of those 3, because that's his comfort zone. Just like when David Tyree was there with Eli. David Tyree was a comfort zone for Eli. Was he the most dynamic player? No. But David Tyree was one of his go-tos that he loved to throw to. So what did Kevin Gilbride do a lot? He threw it to David Tyree early and on third downs or late in the games, because he knew Eli would find him and Tyree would go make a play, right? So that's what you got to do with Hodgins here, because that's who your quarterback likes. And that's who he's comfortable with. So you have to draw plays up for Hodgins to get him rolling, to get him working. And you also have to have a real talk to the rest of your room, your receiver room. Like, listen, Waller, Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, they're going to be our focus. Shepard, Campbell, you're on the second team right now as far as focus. You're going to get your marks, but you got to go make it work. You got to win one-on-one. You got to open up some holes for these guys to catch behind you. Why? Because that's who our quarterback wants to throw to, and it's a business. So suck it up, Buttercup. Go do your job. Play your role.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some recurring issues specific to the defensive side of the ball, issues that just keep popping up and biting this team on the you-know-what. Don't go anywhere, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, snap into NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is super easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, with David Turner, former NFL scout. And folks, yeah, that performance made me feel even worse than what I've been feeling the last few days, but I'm here for you as always. It's a venting session. David's breaking it all down like he always does.
We're working through it together.
We're working through it together. I think at this point, all the Giant fans, we just all need a big group hug because we have been seeing some really lousy
we need some
football of late.
cocktails.
David, let's talk about the defense, the recurring issues. The run defense, 222 yards on the ground, an average of nearly 9.1 yards per carry. The angles, missed angles, miscommunications. I mean, there were a couple guys that showed up to play. I thought Thibodeau had a good game. You can make a case that Dexter Lawrence had a good game. Bobby Okereke had a good game. But my goodness, it's the same thing over and over and over. What do they have to do to drill it into their heads that, hey, you got to tackle better. You got to take better angles. You can't, communicate with each other. I mean, what else can the coaches do?
Well, again, I need to see, and it's hard on a team like this because they have so many weapons, okay? So what I would like to see is us walking the safeties up and letting them play at the line of scrimmage a little bit more to finally, just challenge them to throw against us. Now, today, when you got Tyreek Hill, Waddell, and all their weapons that they have, right? It's hard to do that. And I get that. But Wink tried to go man-to-man a few times, and we got burned, okay? We don't have the horses in the back end to play a bunch of man-to-man. And when we did today, Tua saw it and burned us. So, and they have the weapons to do that. The run defense, our front, you remember in preseason, this is what I said. I said in preseason, having Okereke there was really going to let our D-line take some chances up front because he's going to be there to clean it up, right? He's going to be in the back end cleaning it up for him. Right now, our D-line is getting blocked. They aren't taking chances. They're not even trying to slip double teams or do anything. They are getting pushed around. They are getting handled fairly easily week in and week out. So therefore, it's not that Okereke can't, make the play or take the right angle or anything like that. It's just that our front isn't even tying up people in order to keep him clean to where he can roam. I mean, this is a guy who had 140-something tackles or more last year, maybe even 200. So it's just ridiculous. This guy can tackle. There's no problem with his ability to tackle, but your front has to keep him clean, and they have to let him roam and patrol that 2-3 yard behind the line of scrimmage territory. But right now, they're getting blocked into him. They're getting pushed off the ball. They're not penetrating. So until that front that's getting paid a whole lot of money decides to, go earn their paychecks and get up and, and draw a line in the sand and say, listen, you're not crossing here today, because they have the skill to do it up front. They have the skill. Until they just say, I'm taking the game over, and that's a conscious decision. When you have the skill up front, and they do, you can draw a line in the sand and say, not today. And they're not. And we're not seeing that toughness. We're not seeing the tenacity. We're not seeing the, testicle fortitude. We're not seeing any of that. So for me, they got to, really decide, I'm going to go earn my paycheck today and get up off their culos, as we would say in Italian, and do something, because right now they're just getting smacked in the face and taking it. So I just don't, I really want to. You remember that scene from Moonstruck where Cher slaps Nicolas Cage across the face and says, snap out of it? That's what we need. We need someone to slap these guys in the face and say, snap out of it. Because we saw tenacious play last year from the same group, and we're not seeing it now. And the level of competition that they're up against, barring a few, again, San Francisco, Miami, they are really good offensive lines. They're good people. They great play calling. So again, it's hard to, get on them about those two games. You can get on you can say, okay, the rain, whatever, game one, but let's stop making excuses, because at some point we just got to put our hand in the dirt and play on the other side of the ball. We got to change that line of scrimmage. We got to penetrate, put pressure on the offense to, adjust, get quarterbacks off their spot. We got to do things, and we're not. We're just not getting it done.
So, I mean, the personnel is what it is on offense and on defense. The cavalry isn't coming. We could sit here and we could say the coaches have to do a better job, the players have to do a better job, but somewhere there's a disconnect. This team doesn't have any bite. This team just plays like, I don't want to say vanilla, but just it's very uninspiring. So that being said, every week Brian Dable gets up there on the podium and he says, we have to do a better job. Okay, how about some specifics? If you were in the coaching room and you heard that we have to do a better job, where can they do a better job?
That's a coach falling on the sword, because honestly, you saw not this game, but 2 games ago, we didn't get to do the show because it was a Monday night game. You saw Dable when he threw that, when Daniel Jones threw the interception for the 99-yard touchdown, whatever it was. Dable flipped the tablet at Daniel Jones, and if you read his lips, there was an adjective in there I can't say on your show, but it was we practiced that adjective play, and he flipped the thing because Daniel Jones didn't understand it was a whip route back inside versus an out route, right? I mean, so the coaches to me are coaching it on offense. From what I see, the coaches are coaching it. They're limited by that offensive line play and what they can call there, because there's no protection. Second thing is Daniel's not comfortable. So they're calling it, you're seeing, like, when I watch the tape, tomorrow night, next night, when I watch the tape, I see the concepts that he's trying to do, that Dable's trying to do, and it works. Like, receivers are coming open. They're just not protecting them long enough for them to get open. And then you're like, well, then if they can't call that play, well, if you call every play that's going to run routes under 5 yards, guess what the defense is going to do? Roll the coverage up. So you got to call some plays to stretch the field that threaten them, because if you don't, they roll the coverage up. Now that hurts your run game even more. So again, it's a very interesting thing to be a good play caller in the NFL. And Dable, to me, the last couple of games, I can't say today because I haven't watched the film, but last game I did watch the film, and I liked what I was seeing more when he had that play card in his hand. And out here in Arizona, obviously the second half, when he had the play card in his hand, we saw more of a pressing matter on offense, and one that made sense. So all that being said, on defense, it's honestly, to me, it's a sense of pride. 29 and 27 to me are playing their little cooloos off. Like, they're really playing well. They're hitting people. They're trying to make plays. They seem to have pride. They're trying. I don't see what we need out of our front. And that's what we built this team to do, was be pass rushers like we used to have. Like when we had Stray, when we had O.C. Umanura, when we had, all those guys up front pressing and pushing the pocket, tuck and all that, right? Like, that's how we also built this team now. We have the team that is going to press and get pressure on the quarterback to help the back end, the young guys on the back end. But we're not doing that. We're not forcing the quarterback off the spot. We're not making them run. We're not getting them out of the pocket. We're not getting those trip tackles for sacks, those sellout plays. And it's hard for Wink to blitz because the back end is young. And so, it's hard for him to just go and sell out a bunch of blitzing. And then, like today, like, he brought a blitz and Tyreek Hill, I think, got a 70-yard touchdown on it. So, it's the NFL. Everybody's good. Everybody's going to know what's coming. But for me, when you say we need to do better and you hear Dabo saying that on the podium, that's the coach taking the blame for stuff that the players aren't doing.
Yeah, it's been rough. It's for sure. All right, coming up next, we're going to try and find a glimmer of hope. I don't know if there is any, but we're going to see if there is something that we can kind of end on a positive note. So don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, right? So that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I personally use LinkedIn Jobs to find aspiring writers for Giants Country, the site that I run over on SI's Fan Nation. And the process is not only super easy, but a big time saver. Simply add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize whom you'd like to interview and hire. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead-end leads. Put LinkedIn jobs to work to you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. You've got me, Patricia Traina, along with former NFL scout David Turner, and we're coming to you literally just hours after the Giants got destroyed by the Miami Dolphins. And David, Daniel Jones got hurt in this game, the neck issue. We don't know if it's the same issue that caused him to miss 6 games a couple years ago. Saquon's still not ready to come back. Andrew Thomas still not ready to come back. I mean, what hope is there that this team, I'm not going to say turn it around, because at this point, I don't know that they turn it around. Already, I think I saw that they're 14.5 underdog next week against the Bills. But if there's something that we can maybe look towards to say maybe we could feel a little bit better about this team, what would that be?
My worry is about Daniel Jones' health, obviously, but also Tyron Taylor. Did you see him at the end of the game? Like, he got hit.
Had the wind knocked out of him.
Yeah, but that can turn into a rib injury later or something else, and you're just like, okay, here we go, right? I'll say this. No one did us favors when it came to the scheduling. And you open up on a Sunday night, then you travel across country to Arizona, then you play a short week in San Francisco, then you got a long layover and you go to and you play Seattle at home, and now you got to go down to Miami. It's a lot of movement in the first 5 weeks or so. So for me, I always liked our schedule when the first few weeks were like 3 games in a row on Sundays and then throw a Monday night at us or something. Let's come out of training camp with some consistency where the players kind of get into a rhythm and know about lifting and working out and that stuff. This one was a challenging schedule. That being said, I think coming up, we have a more consistent schedule. Yes, the Bills are going to be a very tough game. We're at the Bills. So again, we're going from South Beach up to northern, not a big road trip, but we still got to go up and play the Bills up in northern New York. So, but after that, you got the Commanders, winnable. You got the Jets, winnable. You got the Raiders, winnable. Cowboys rematch. Here we go. See what their health and stuff's like at that point. But I still believe the Cowboys would be a winnable game. And then you have the Commanders again. So if you're going to look at this, the next 6 games, you seriously do have 4 winnable games in the Cowboys with a question mark, okay? So if you can keep this team together, say you drop to 1-5 after the Bills game, but you keep them together and then you come out of that next 5-game stretch with a 4-1 record, that means you're 5-6 going into the back end with, again, 6 more games to finish out the year, so you can make a run for it. It's 17 games now. You guys everybody's got to understand. Like right now, we're not very high on the Giants. We don't really like what we're seeing. Can they turn it around? Absolutely, they can absolutely turn it around. By Christmas time, we might be like, look at the job Dabo and Wink have done with this team. Here we go. They have the tools in the toolbox. The players just got to say we're going to do it, and the coaches have to give them, the opportunity to make plays. This is a situation where we're not looking really good. We can point fingers all we want, but until the players, come back from wherever their heads are at and can pull them out and let's play, then it's up to them. If they want to cash it in, it's easy to cash it in. Blow the next 3 games. You ain't making the playoffs, boys. You're going home. So, it's the way it goes. Start rating practice squads and, doing your thing that way because it won't happen. Right now, as we know, there's no offensive lineman that's on a practice squad that we can go raid that's going to help our offensive line, anytime fast. Those guys are all protected. So in the offseason, the Giants have to make a serious commitment to fixing the O-line up front. Otherwise, it's just not going to be worth anything. And if it requires you cutting some veteran players in other places to get the money to do it, you got to do it.
David, you say they have the tools in the toolbox. The offensive line has been bad. All right. I mean, save for Andrew Thomas, who, by the way, was on the field for that 40-0 blowout. Now, I'm not saying that it was his fault because he did play most of that game injured. But that offensive line has been bad. It is missing John Michael Schmitz now. All right. Joshua Zudo, inconsistent to the point where they had to put Matt Parrott in there. Marcus McKethan is dealing with a knee injury. Mark Lewinsky, who got benched from that week 1 game, had to go in there at left guard. I mean, they might have the tools, but that offensive line, to me, remains the key. So that being said, how do you help that unit out?
As you just heard me say a few minutes ago on the show, 12 personnel has got to be your base personnel. Double tight ends, keeping Waller in the block, using Bellinger to block, keeping your back in the block. So think about this. You got 5 terrible offensive linemen. Oh, we don't have to think about it. We see it every week. So we got 5 terrible offensive linemen, but we keep Bellinger and the back end to block. Like people might get on Gray a little bit about, certain things that he does. But today I saw him step up against a very big man in 94 for the Dolphins and put his head in his chest. It didn't do much good because that guy's like 330 pounds, but he's willing to step up and do his job, which is take on somebody and buy the quarterback an extra second to be able to, throw the ball and get the ball out. So for me, Gray and Bellinger would become extra offensive linemen in there, and then you would have to literally go win with 3 people running routes and doing stuff. It's the way it goes. You got to pare down your playbook. You got to get creative in your combinations, which way you run trips, which way you run the ball as far as like wham blocks and stuff. So your tight ends can come in and hit people and seal the outside, or even a receiver come down hard and knock a guy out once in a while. We used to call it ear hole, the offensive or the defensive outside linebacker or something. So, you got to ask everybody to step up their game and do a better job with what you ask. But to help that offensive line, either start playing with 6 offensive linemen or start just playing with 12 personnel to help them out. They don't know if Waller's staying in, Bellinger's staying in. They don't know if you're going to go 2 tights with a slot on the backside. Hey, go slot boundary. That'll people will be like, what are you doing? Just start getting a little bit more creative, but you have to help the offensive line out by holding people in. And again, I would hold people in on Neal's side right now. And then what I would do is I would fan to the left tackle. So you're fanning left with an extra back or tight end coming in to help Neal on his side. So this way he's blocking down, often just going to double with the guard. There we go. Or double with the tight end on the outside rusher. So he's always going to be part of a double team at that point. Helps him out. When you fan block towards the left tackle, whoever's coming off that left tackle, all he has to do is keep his eye on the outside guy, and that's his guy. He doesn't have to go inside at all, and he's not thinking inside at all. It's just fan blocking out. So here we go. And I know it's base. I mean, that's base football right there. But again, if you don't start doing that well, you're never going to do the complicated stuff well.
What about on defense? I mean, again, the same problems popping up. You mentioned the defensive front, which, has basically been invisible at times. Not all, Dexter's played well, but, Leonard Williams, I mean, when was the last time he stepped up and made a play that you could say, oh, wow, So, I mean, what can they do there? Should they simplify stuff? I mean, obviously, you said Wink doesn't have what he needs to play man-to-man coverage. So what can they do to stop this bleeding?
Well, it's hard to play man-to-man coverage when you're playing the Dolphins. They're just they're electric now. But again, Buffalo next week. Buffalo's going to come home They were across the pond. They got their butts handed to them today, and they didn't look good. They have a bunch of injuries on their defense. So today they lost some players. that are going to be out for a while, and it's something that you got a wounded animal coming in, that are upset they just lost the game, so you got to take advantage of that. On defense, again, for me, it is all about them lining up and saying, "Not today, not today." I don't care what happens next Sunday. Today, we're not giving up 100 yards rushing. Like, that's just a decision. I know when I wasn't in the NFL, but when I was in some of my alternative leagues, I used to pin $100 on the cork board and be like, "Here's $100 for whoever leads us in sacks. Here's $100 for whoever leads us in interceptions today. Here's $100 who leads us in rushing today." I would put $300-400 up on the board just to motivate the players to go get that money, go get that bag. Right? We talk about it all the time with the young kids; they want to get that bag. Well, this is how you get it: is you have to play for it. There's no NIL deals in the NFL. So you need to go play for it and make it happen for yourself. You got the big contracts. We should feel your presence every single player out there. I know I said it on the show before, but I'll say it again around Warren Sapp. He's like, they don't pay me to play the games. They pay me to lift weights and show up for practice. Playing the games is a pleasure. Everybody that I've ever been around, they wanted to play the games for their own motivation and reasons. Whether it's feed their families or just because they were narcissistic, A-butts, but they were just out there to be the dominant force and prove to everybody that they did it better than everyone else, and they deserved all the attention and credit, and they deserved their contract because they really were the best. So it doesn't matter what motivates them. You got to motivate them and make it happen. And right now, that D-line, that front, is not motivated to be dominant. And I don't understand it, I'll be honest, because last year they were getting pretty dominant. Thibodeau had a good game today, but the rest of them didn't really show up, and the stats show it. I mean, Lawrence had 1 tackle. Leonard Williams had 1 tackle, 1 assist. They're just not there. And you're not looking at it going, oh, wow, like they did some stuff. No, we got Isaiah Simmons and with 7 tackles, and McKinney with 7 tackles, and Belton with 3 tackles. Okay, that's all your second line. It's your second line. Where's your front line? These are your safeties and your second line. We don't have our front line up here doing stuff with multiple pressures, tackles for loss, penetrating, changing the line of scrimmage. So yeah, I'm not okay with it. And because it's your show, I'm not saying all my words. I'm trying to use my big words. But I just literally think it takes them wanting to be better on defense, and our front has to want to take the game over. Not worry about what's happening behind them. Not worrying about anything behind them. What can I control? Beating this man in front of me right now.
By the way, I thank you for not using your words. I'm sure I used them while I was watching them, but and I'm sure I thought them along the ways when you were talking. But anyway,
I have a very colorful palette of words and verbiage.
I'm sure
that I could utilize anytime you welcome it. I will let it.
You're Italian like I am, and when our tempers flare, man, oh boy. And I'm not proud to admit that, but anyway. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm going to have special guest Brad Spielberger, our Pro Football Focus, on the program. And we're going to try and do a little deeper dive into some of the metrics behind this absolute miserable start to the Giants 2023 season. So for David Turner, I'm Patricia Traina. Giant fans, we will see you tomorrow.